Hello, this is 𝗲𝗲𝗍 and you're watching The Shift Asia. In an era where global challenges demand innovative corporate responsibility, the telecommunications industry stands poised to make significant strides towards sustainability and ethical governance. As consumers increasingly prioritize values alongside products and services, telecommunications companies find themselves at a pivotal juncture. So embracing ESG principles not only aligns with societal expectations, but also presents an opportunity to drive meaningful change while ensuring long-term profitability and resilience. So amidst this backdrop, CelcomDigi is integrating ESG considerations into its core business strategy and recognizing the interconnectedness of digital connectivity and societal well-being. They are embarking on a journey to redefine its role in the global landscape with its trust of advancing and inspiring society, supported by its 4 pillars, namely inclusive and safe digital access, sustainable value chain, governance and performance culture, and environmental impact and action. I'm here with Datuk Idham and Nawawi, the CEO of CelcomDigi, to find out more and what it all means, right? And of course, no one's going to be able to run away from this whole thing behind ESG and sustainability. But how did we look at ESG from a telco perspective, and what are the considerations? And I guess, how would it be different from other industries?
First and foremost, Frida, it's good to see you. And thanks for having me on this show.
A pleasure.
You know, the telco sector today plays a significant, very important role in the society.
Right.
I mean, in the old days, it was like you can't leave home without your wallet. Now you can't leave home without your phone.
Yes.
Yeah, we are the one that you first connect to in the morning and the last that you drop before you go to sleep. So it's part of today's life. So how we look at then the sustainability or the ESG part of it becomes very important. Then for us, we are now the largest mobile operator. We have more than 20 million in terms of subscribers on our own, and we also support other MVNOs as well. So we're talking about 23, 24 million of Malaysians actually using our network. Right. So this becomes this, it's not just something that we have to do, it becomes a responsibility. For us to do our services, our business in a very, very responsible way. So when it comes to ESG, of course, people talk about environment a lot, but for us, because we deal more with the society, the social aspect becomes very important, and also the governance aspect, because then we're talking about the safety and the security of our customers when they use our services, and of course, not forgetting the environmental part.
Right.
So, as you mentioned, we have 4 pillars when we look at this. So the first 2 pillars focus more about the social aspect of it. One is about inclusivity and making sure everybody, all Malaysians, have access to a safe internet, a safe way of going into the virtual world, etc. Right. So I think that's the first part of it. Second is, as we build our services, right, we build a huge ecosystem around it. And then just to make sure, we call this also our society. This whole ecosystem is our society. The vendors, the contractors, the subcontractors, our dealers, and so on and so forth. So it's about building this ecosystem in a way that is sustainable for the country and for the nation. Right. So these are the first 2 core pillars that I mentioned. Is more on the society side. Right. And the third pillar, you know, today we have a lot of issues around scams, cyberbullying, cyber attacks, stealing identities. So the governance then becomes very important. How do we protect our customers? How we protect, make sure that our services are safe to be used? Our processes, for example, takes care of that, the privacy of our customers. And this is one area, for example, that is, there's no compromise for us. Yeah, no compromise. Privacy is a no compromise, building trust with our customers. And last but not least, to serve our customers, we use a lot of energy. Yes. And the type of the demand for the services, we might not realize it actually. Every single day, our customers are using more and more and more and more data without realizing it. And sometimes when you sleep, your phone is working.
Some sleep app.
App is doing something, you know, or updating in the background. And this is all unlike where we were 10 years ago. So it's very different. So when they do that, it also consumes energy.
Right.
So we want to do our part to make sure that we reduce the impact to the environment. Of course, we subscribe to the net zero by 2050, and we also have subscribed to the SBTI in science-based of how to measure to reduce our carbon footprint, so on and so forth. So these are how we look at it.
Okay, rewind a bit. The thinking behind the theme or the thrust of what CelcomDigi is about, advancing and inspiring society. Yeah, what's the thinking behind that?
This is interesting. We thought a lot about this, even before the merger, and then once we merge and we talk about what are we all about?
Yeah.
Why are we here? Why is this company should exist 30 years from now? Beyond our time, my time, this management time, the future management time. Why? What's our purpose? And then we have been around. We have been investing as a company, both Celcom and Digi before the merger, and now the CelcomDigi, investing on infrastructure. And this infrastructure has been the platform for the nation in terms of improve the life of the nation and the people and the society. Connecting people is, of course, we start with connecting on the voice, and then we're connecting on data and connecting to people to the internet. So you imagine for Malaysians who are able to have through a phone, doesn't matter where they are. They're in the city center Kuala Lumpur, or they're in the Gua Musang, or they're in Kampung Tanjung, where I came from, in Terengganu, quite a remote area. They have access to the world.
Right.
And so this is where we think if this tool is used properly, then is how we could actually advance as a society.
Right.
And inspiring, of course, is we want to do it in a fun way. We want to do it in a way that it not only us moving forward, that we bring along everyone to come along and inspire people to go. I think that's how we thought about it. And then we think it doesn't matter whether we move from, we have moved from 2G to 3G to 4G now in the 5G era. And then whether we move on to 6G, 7G, 8G, 10G, whatever Gs that it may be, this purpose will remain true.
Right.
Yeah. Whether we move into now AI, for example, right? This purpose will remain true.
And it's interesting, right? So it's got to outlive your, the current management time, and that whatever you do continues to inspire and advance, the society as well. You looked at the, you touched a little bit on the 4 pillars, but the environmental impact. What were the considerations?
Yeah, this is quite tough for us, actually. It's not as simple as it is to maybe other industries. It's easier, because the implications on what they do themselves. But we look at it, as I mentioned, we have a huge ecosystem.
Yes.
And then our services also is being used by millions of people. So from the environmental impact, if you talk about the use of energy, I guess that's the big bulk of it, the use of energy. We talk about how we do our networks. Okay, that's the simple. We have to build our network in order to provide these services. And you see towers. The towers have equipment. The equipment needs to be powered, etc. That's the first aspect of it. And then the availability of grid power, the availability of renewable energy to power this up. And unfortunately, in some areas we still have to rely on diesel genset, because telecommunication services is there, but power is not yet there, for example, or it's too remote to bring the power. So some of these areas, we have to work with Tenaga Nasional or the local power company. How do we bring it to grid so that we reduce that? I think that's the first element.
So we are moving towards that as much as possible.
As much as possible. So we talk about scope 1 and we talk about scope 2. I think that's something that we can work a little bit within, I would say, more within our control. And also working with our partners, our vendors, also that's also more within our control. Then you talk about the other partners who produce the equipment that we need to use. And when we start moving into scope 3, then the challenge is a little bit more. Then it goes a little bit beyond what we can do, but perhaps more what this industry globally could do. So there goes the role of for example, the GSMA, which is a global association, and then they push for the industry to go green as well. So I think that's the other aspect of how we impact the environment. Then there's the aspect of the consumers. Everybody uses the phone, everybody uses the services, and they're using more and more. But sometimes the awareness on sometimes you don't have to use when you don't have to use.
Okay.
How to use the network more efficiently, the resources more efficiently, help to reduce what we have to demand. For example, if you don't have to do a software update every week, you can do it a day. Then you do that. If you don't have to send something, if you have to download every pictures that's being pushed to you, perhaps then you don't use as much data, right?
Stop sending those pictures.
Stop the spam, basically. Stop the spam. And these days now, the way that we live, there we have so many groups. Everybody seems to be sending pictures to everyone, right? And then sometimes you see the same picture 10 times in the same group in the same day, right? So every time you do that, you use resources on the network, and then to that you use energy. So
we don't think about that.
We don't think about that. The consumers don't think about that. So that's a part that in a way some education is probably.
You touched a little bit earlier on. You talk about society. So how are you addressing the maybe just elaborate a little bit more the S and the G in your business operations?
So the S, the society, as I mentioned to you, about more education and the focus and the internal focus, etc. The G is on the governance side, and there's a few areas that we really focus on in terms of privacy. I think it's one that impacts the society. There's a cybersecurity. There's in terms of the safety of them using the network, our services. So. And then the overall, in terms of the overall governance and the structure that we have. We are very strong even in terms of we put the processes in place, not just at the management level, but also at the board level. Even the board, we have a specialized board governance and compliance, for example, that's looking at that. And then we have the management level of management governance and compliance committee that looks at this. So we look at the aspect of safety, security, and then also another aspect is health and safety. And that's also very important for us, especially around the ecosystem, the supply chain. The government has just introduced a new regulation around health and safety. I think it was in the paper a couple of days back that talked about the challenge among the Malaysian SMEs. One is understanding that regulation or being aware of that regulation, and then to comply to that regulation. And that happens to our contractors and subcontractors as well. Because most of our subcontractors are Malaysian SMEs. And we have thousands of them. So this is one of the few things that we do. One of it is we have for example, our vendor development program, our VDP. Instead of focusing on giving specific contracts to certain type of vendors, what we focus on is uplifting the standard of their work, right? For example, helping them in this health and safety environment, how to know how to comply, educating them, making sure that they are trained properly. I think that's one thing that we do. And the second thing is just also to make sure that they can compete effectively. Because competition today is global. So if our local contractors are not able to compete
on a global,
not that they have to go outside to be, but you're seeing external vendors or suppliers are coming in.
And if you're not
at par with them, so that's something that we want to build. So I think that's the S and the G side that we do.
In your opinion, and for a conglomerate like CelcomDigi with millions of users in all aspects, what has been most challenging in the ESG journey?
One, of course, like I mentioned, between scope 1, scope 2, and then scope 3, because the mass of it, and scope 3 we're looking at is going to be that challenging part. the education of the consumers.
Right.
Because as I mentioned, the demand continue to go up. Then we are required to continue to invest to ensure that we met with this demand for data. Then we have to continue to reinvest, the reinvestment itself.
Okay.
But now we have to be very selective on the reinvestment, the type of technology that we choose.
Right.
More energy-friendly, environmental-friendly equipment that we use. We use more intelligent or even AI, for example, in our network. For example, right? The demand during the day versus the demand at night is quite vastly different. If you go to KLCC, during the day it's peak, at night it's empty. So we use AI and other things, other technologies, so that the network sleeps at night.
Okay.
And the network wakes up by the time the radio DJ comes out, right? For example.
Oh, you wake up for prayers.
Wake up for prayers. Yeah, maybe the prayers comes up and the network also wakes up. So technology like that, and then the challenge is also to get source of energy that's actually renewable. So we work, of course, with Tenaga Nasional to get a hold of their renewable energy portion of their grid. Also to replace our diesel gensets, replace the batteries.
Right.
So those are some of the other challenges that we have.
And I guess there are timelines in place, obviously, with the deadline to slowly make that transition, right, so to speak, right? How do you get the workforce on board something like this? I think that is how many thousands of people trying to get everybody on the same, on the same journey.
Yeah. Well, we have about 3,500 to 4,000 people just working with us directly.
Right.
But we do have about 10 to 15,000, or probably more than that, indirectly with us.
Right.
So that's kind of the bigger challenge. So education then is important. Of course, internally we have through town halls, through internal program, internal communications, and communications with the vendors and so on. So I think that's the internal that we do. Externally, with our ecosystem, we have a dedicated team looking at this, the health and safety team that actually educate them, work with them, check on them. It's important to check on them. Those kind of, and also work with the larger partners who has subcontractors to work through them. So I think that's the part that we're looking at. I think the challenge, of course, the bigger ecosystem is the one that we have to work with.
Right.
The internal I think is getting there.
Right.
People are understanding it. We have the right tools. We have the right communications platforms to educate them. The right programs also, but the larger ecosystem that we have to work on. And I've been also meeting up in the investment communities, which is becoming more and more important. So education and communication on what we do to these communities also is very important.
Right. Okay, so that everyone's involved. So I know you talked a little bit already about Scope 1 and 2, and also touching a little bit about on Scope 3. Can you share an example of anything that's been done? I know for them, it's a journey for them, right? Getting Scope 3 involved, right? So anything to sort of like giving them like, okay, this is going to be happening in a couple of years, so start getting ready with this aspect of your business.
Well, on the Scope 3, I think we're beginning to put the foundation on it. I think what's important now as we move from 4G to 5G, I think that's, and to me, is an opportunity to educate our users, to educate our suppliers. Of course, this is even the big partners like the Samsung, Apple, and all that. They are owners, the big phone device suppliers. Right. They are very aware of this, and they're doing it in their own ecosystem. Right. But from our users, then I think we need to start educating them. We're putting the foundation for that on how to use the device or the service more, responsibly, because there is an impact to the environment every time that they do this. I think that's the foundation that we do. And of course, as we move from 4G to 5G also, 5G is a much more efficient way of transporting the data.
Okay.
So it can bring the data in much more efficient way than 4G. That's why there's a larger volume of data can be handled. That's also, while the technology itself as a whole use more power, but it is a lot more efficient to deliver what you have to deliver. If you have to deliver what you do per what you deliver on 5G, on 4G, then you would have used a lot more energy than if not.
People forget about efficiency, right? And that's the long-term aspect, right? So obviously CelcomDigi, you went through the merger, a lot of changes within that, right? And what are some of your plans moving forward around the 4 pillars, especially with the aspiration to be the top 5 ESG performer in Malaysia? And I suppose now everything you all do has, every decision you make has that in the background, right?
So I think that's important. Every time we issue an RFP, every time we issue a tender, every time we ask for a service, RFQ, there's the element of ESG is there. So I think then the ecosystem understand the priority that we put, the importance of the focus that we put on this. I think to me is, yes, we want to be top 5 practitioner in the country. We know we are not there yet. There are people who's a lot more there. But my focus, I think the organization focus should be in implementing this 4 properly.
Right.
Yeah, just get it done right. Once we get this done right and show some results, and the external folks, the external parties will see this, and the benchmark people who monitors this will see that how the things that we do. I think that's one. So focusing on this 4 pillar properly, and the first pillar, for example, because especially because that's in a way core to our role as the largest mobile operator in the country, making it available, affordable to all Malaysians. I think that's the part that we need to play. We need to play that. We need to play that very well. So even though we don't talk about green and trees, planting trees all the time, the S and the G part are core as well to ESG, and that's where we play. We make sure it's successful.
And we forget, right, underlying all that still have to be affordable, still have to be all that, and all these other factors. And it is important, as you were saying, that moving forward, the decisions, the things that you do, and look forward to, getting to the top 5, Datuk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure.
Good
You've been watching The Shift Asia, and of course, I've been with Datuk Idham from CelcomDigi.